Hey guys, we're back. We had to move because there was some shenanigans going on at the Department of Education, and they moved a big mum sale. I hope the mum sale was for special education. So if we haven't met, I am Karen Mayer Cunningham, special education boss. I'm helping navigate, negotiate successful student outcomes for everyone that sits at the 504 IEP table. We're in beautiful, beautiful Frankfort, Kentucky, addressing the egregious problems that exist here in the state. We are requesting and requiring and demanding that Dr. Glass address these issues from a state level with instructions to districts, to campuses, to educational service centers about their duties and obligations under Child Find, under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, additionally under their requirements under the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights as it applies to 504 plans, and then clarification around RTI. RTI is simply a modality that teachers use. RTI stands for Response Intervention, to make sure their students in general education continue to have success as they're having acquisition to the state standards. And so one of the reasons that I'm here in Kentucky is a wonderful little Spitfire girl, Addie Ray. We have had meeting after meeting after meeting with this school district, to which they bring in their administrator, their director. The last meeting they bring in an attorney. Here's my real question. I'm not an attorney. What rises to the level for a school district that needs to bring in an attorney to a special ed meeting? Special ed meeting for a little girl who's in first grade. Why do you think that they're spending $300, $400, $500, $650 an hour on an attorney for little old me? I'm not an attorney. I'm for parents that just want their child's IEP to be implemented, for the modifications to be delivered, for the accommodations for her special ed minutes to be delivered. And so one of the things that's the most problematic about this situation, which I find for parents all over the United States, and I want to address, is the requirements under augmentative alternative communication, otherwise known as a VOCD, a voice output communication device. There's much confusion and sometimes division around this. These are amazing high-tech assistive technology devices that give children what? They give them the ability to communicate at the same rate and time as other kids, the same time, and it gives them access. So this is about access. And so we have these kiddos that need eligibility. There's an evaluation for these voice output communication devices, and they are amazing so that they can have language and interact, right? Because sometimes kiddos can't get it out for either functional reasons or formations of their mouth or trauma or another disability. It doesn't mean that there's a cognitive deficit at all. Listen to me. It doesn't mean there's a cognitive deficit. Because a person can't communicate does not mean they have a cognitive deficit. If we had somebody that was 40 years old and they had a stroke, and all of a sudden after that stroke they couldn't verbally communicate, we wouldn't say, oh, well, they have a complete cognitive deficit. And we do that to children all day long in school districts. We do it. It's a bias. It's a bias that I used to have because I didn't know any better. But we can know better and we can do better. So these assistive technology devices, are they expensive? Absolutely. Do your children have value? Absolutely. If they needed a power wheelchair, we'd provide that. Yes. Would we have to have a ramp to get inside the school? Yes, because that's how you use a wheelchair. And so schools that are using VOCDs in Kentucky, listen to me, it's a legal requirement that you provide training around those devices. It is a legal requirement that you provide training. It's a legal requirement that you provide minutes, assistive technology minutes. Department of Education in Kentucky and school districts in Kentucky, stop telling parents that you can't have any assistive technology minutes, because that's a law that you are breaking. In the AT device, the Assistive Technology Device Act in Congress in 1990, one of the 8 pillars of IDEA, it very precisely and clearly indicates that we are allowed to have assistive technology devices, the actual product, even if you have to go buy it off the shelf, not order it and wait 10 years, and service minutes. Of course you're going to need service minutes for an AT device. That's how you learn to use it. If you were teaching a child a baby language, would you just talk to him for 30 minutes and go, you didn't talk? No, language is something you immerse a child in. You immerse a child in language. And so this child has to be immersed in this augmentative alternative communication, which means somebody has to teach it, the SLP and the AT specialist, and they're in your district. I promise you they are. Then that teaching, that modeling has to be trained to the general ed teacher, the PE teacher, the music teacher, because a child has the right to communicate from bell to bell and bus to bus. You wouldn't tell Billy, who had regular and normed average expressive language. Hey, you're only be able to talk 30 minutes on Tuesdays and Fridays. That would be egregious, correct? And so you wouldn't tell a child that use sign language. I'm thinking like Mondays and Thursdays, a couple of minutes, but we're really busy. So we cannot deny that child those minutes. The child is not going to learn to use a device if the entire educational team does not have some level of use of the device. We don't take the child's device and use it, right? If I'm going to call somebody on my cell phone, I use my cell phone to communicate to their cell phone. So somebody should have another device. Somebody else should have another device and model that language on the voice output communication device. There's so much training available for you online. Please avail yourself of that. Chatterbox is a great resource. They do trainings. Dr. Deanna Linick, who has language through AAC.org. Please avail yourself of this. This is an amazing way to access what kids know and their ability to have communication. There are 10 types of communicative intent. 10 types. Not just yes, no, potty, eat. We have to stop doing that. We have to step up as educators and administrators and have acquisition of this training. It's online. It's available to you. And lots of kiddos could have access to their non-disabled peers in the least restrictive environment in general ed if there is a provision of their alternative communication. But that's never going to happen when you sit at meetings and posture and bully parents and bring in attorneys, not really even sure why you brought the attorney in, to tell us no. That you literally wrote an email that said, hey, Miss Cunningham wants a device used across settings. Answer number 1, no. It's not a no. The U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, vehemently will have a problem with you denying a child equal access to communication with their teachers and peers at the same time. So please make sure that you know your rights. Parents, please do not be dismissed by somebody going, oh, I mean, you don't want a communication device. I mean, you want her to talk, right? I mean, you don't want us to tell them to stop talking, right? The reason there's manipulation is because there's fear. I don't have time to figure out what your fear is. All I know is that you are denying a child their right to access their world, their community, and their school at the same way that other kids without disabilities get to. So we're here today for Addie. We're here today for Jonathan. We're here for Luke. We're here for Levi. We're here for Nora. We're here for Madison. These are children. These aren't numbers. These aren't paperwork. This is a child who's going to live to be 90. And so we have an obligation. It's not an option. It's an obligation to provide them an IEP, an individualized education program to identify where they need special education and or related services. Let me shout it from the mountaintops in Kentucky. It is a requirement. The totality of the IEP has to be implemented, not what you feel like doing. Education and law has nothing to do with feelings. It has to do with requirements. And I understand this isn't for everybody, but it's our job to start partnering with teachers. And you could think about paying them, Kentucky. You could think about taking some of your money from the admin level and from the Department of Education and pay them. The teachers are actually the ones actually working. The teachers are actually the one providing an educational product to the students. And you could also train them. You don't train them. You train them on safety. You train them on peanut allergies. You train them on CPR, and that's great. But we need to train them on how to be greater general ed teachers, greater special education teachers, greater paraprofessionals. And if you make it a priority, these teachers want to know. They are dying to be informed. But what we do usually in special ed when we're not a good district, and there's a million good districts, is we just hush the teachers and tell them to go away. And going away is completely over. We're going to show up. We're going to completely be organized. We're going to invoke our legal and federal and state rights as it relates to special education and 504 plans. We hope and believe that Kentucky is going to partner with us for change. It's an amazing state with amazing kiddos. And whatever we can do to serve you, just let us know. And we'll see you in the next video.